Howdy again everyone, and today I'm testing out a new little autofocus lens from 7Artisans, their 27mm f2.8. This autofocus lens has been available on Sony E-mount mirrorless cameras for a couple of months. Now it's winging its way over onto Nikon Z-mount, and that's the version they've sent me for testing. It has a low price of $129 or £119 here in the UK, and it covers an APS-C or DX image circle only. Here is the coverage you'll get if you shoot on a full frame camera without using crop mode. I'd like to thank 7Artisans very much for sending me a copy of this lens for testing, although as usual this is a totally independent review. 27mm on a crop sensor is the equivalent of about 41mm on a full frame camera, making this a very versatile focal length. It has a slightly wide angle, but one that still gives just a little emphasis on your subject, and its perspective is very close to that of the human eye. Useful. The lens's maximum aperture of f2.8 is hardly spectacular, but compared to most kit lenses at 27mm, it'll be at least a top brighter, giving faster shutter speeds in darker situations and offering more out-of-focus backgrounds, although something like this will never be mistaken for a portrait lens, for instance. The lens itself is metallic, solidly assembled, and has a rather classy anodized black satin finish, looking way nicer than usual for a low-budget lens. It's based on a metal lens mount without any weather sealing, and there's a USB-C port on the side of it for firmware upgrades, with a removable rubber cover. The only control point on the lens is a smoothly turning metallic manual focus ring on the front. In autofocus mode, it controls your aperture by default, although you can set it to control other things in your camera's menu, or even disable it altogether. The lens displays quite a bit of focus breathing as you change focus, as you can see here. The lens's autofocus motor is a little on the slow side, but it does work quite accurately, and with only a very tiny whirring noise that's almost impossible to hear. The lens's filter thread size is a very small and unusual 39mm, and the lens does not come with a hood. It is not image stabilized, although you wouldn't really expect it to be. Overall, really solid build quality here and a nice little design too, although its autofocus, as I mentioned, isn't the fastest. So let's take a look at image quality. I'll be testing it today on a Nikon Z7, shooting in its 20MP crop mode, and at the time of writing that is currently the highest resolution you can get on a Nikon Z-mount DX camera. In-camera corrections are turned on, although they don't seem to fix the lens's distortion, just alleviating its vignetting. Anyway, at f2.8 in the middle of the image we see excellent sharpness and contrast right away, and over in the corners it's the same, although of course the image is a little warped from barrel distortion. Stop down to f4 for a little more brightness in those corners. The lens stays this sharp down to f11, where softness from diffraction makes itself felt, and f16 is soft. Overall though, an excellent performance here, although I should note a couple of things. Firstly, a 20MP sensor is hardly the most demanding in the world, and secondly, it really would be good to see that distortion being fixed. This is another in a worrying trend of cheaper third-party lenses failing to correct their image's distortion properly. Let's look more closely at distortion and vignetting by turning corrections off altogether. There is the moderately strong barrel distortion, plain to see, although without corrections, the vignetting gets really bad at f2.8. Stop down to f4 or f5.6 for that darkness to gradually be pushed further and further into the image corners. Well, at least the camera allows you to correct for that, I suppose. Let's check out the lens's close-up image quality. It can focus down to about 30cm. The good news is that it's still displaying excellent sharpness and contrast straight from f2.8. Nice. Okay, let's see how the lens performs against bright lights now. Whoa, what happened? I think this has to be officially the worst performance I have ever seen. What a shame the lens doesn't come with a hood, it sure needs one. Even stopped down to f5.6 as I do here, we are still seeing issues. Wow. Next, bokeh, and while this lens doesn't really offer deeply out of focus backgrounds to you here, the backgrounds it does offer you look nice and smooth. Bokeh balls near the edge of the image have quite a strong cat's eye shape to them at f2.8 though. And finally, related to bokeh comes longitudinal chromatic aberration. At f2.8, colour fringing is slightly noticeable on bokeh highlights. Stop down to f4 and it goes away. Overall, well, apart from some uncorrected barrel distortion and problems with flaring, this is actually a very nice lens. It is sharp, with good contrast, soft bokeh, and good close-up image quality. It's got a well-designed body, whose autofocus works perfectly fine, if a little slow. What else could you want for $130? It has to come recommended. Thanks for watching, everyone. I love testing everything from some of the most expensive cameras and lenses in the world down to these low budget offerings, because sometimes the quality can really take you by surprise. If you regularly watch these videos and you'd like to support the channel, check out my Patreon page down in the description below, where supporters get all kinds of extra bonus content as well as early access to lots of my reviews. Ciao for now, everyone.